You're listening to ABC Radio Melbourne.
Where it is, 5:06. Now, you've probably been hearing about the vaccinated economy. It's no jab, no entry rules. They're going to be introduced across parts of Victoria in about 3 weeks, and that's going to pave the way for a statewide adoption of vaccination passports. But how secure are they? Will they work? Yesterday, the Industry Minister, Martin Bakula, said the lack of 100% fraud-proof vax passport shouldn't delay us from trying it.
I'm not a technical expert on security of the Medicare system. I have seen the reports which say that there is some ability for a smart hacker to try and alter that digital record, and I understand that the Commonwealth is working to protect it from that. But that's really part of what the trial's about.
So that's Martin Bakula talking about it yesterday, basically saying, yes, there are reports that there's ability for a hacker to alter it. One of the people who's been writing some of those reports is Cam Wilson, Crikey tech reporter, who joins us now. Hi, Cam.
Hey.
Hi. You've been writing those reports for Crikey, saying actually these aren't fit for purpose.
Yeah, so what I've kind of been looking at is the Australian federal government's vaccine certificate, which they offer. So there's an Australian immunisation register, and that connects into the Medicare and MyGov system. And what that allows you to do is once you've had your jabs, goes to the system, you can then get a certificate, which is, just it can either be something that you show on your phone, or if you don't have a phone, you can get it printed out or even sent to you that shows that you've had the vaccine. So that's great. It gives you, it's a little certificate that you can show, but it's not very, I would say that it seems it is very easy to forge. So you can pretty easily create both fake versions of the digital one, and even easier, I think, versions of the paper one that allow you to say, well, I've had my vaccine even when you haven't. And the reason it's getting a bit of criticism is because there are certain things that could have been thought about when this system was imagined that haven't been done, which could have made it much easier to fake.
So we have been talking about the lack of security for that particular site and how it would be printed out or given to the phone. What's been done since these criticisms have been raised? I mean, let's leave aside the fact that it should have been designed in a better way, or we should have a better idea by now. But has anything been done in the last few weeks that's given you any hope to say that they're getting on the better track?
There has been some talk from the states about doing something. So in New South Wales, where they're a little bit ahead of Victoria, they have the app rolling out, or with their Service New South Wales, which is their check-in app, they have an update rolling out for a trial early next month that will try and implement a QR code, which will have some aspect of verification. And that won't even be ready for when it looks like things will open up. It looks like that trial will be finished later in October. But they're trying to do something around then. But even still, it still appears that will be a system that will be kind of easy to fake. In Victoria, we've kind of heard, speaking about, well, we should be trying to do things, but at the moment we're just trying to roll it out. And if it is, if we roll it out and it's not perfect, that's kind of fine. I think the real issue is that at its core, what the states are going off is the federal database. And so the state apps are having it so you can plug that kind of information into the state app. So that's good because it means that you don't have to open, for instance, your Medicare Express app as well as your Victorian check-in app. So that's great. It's easier. Let's make it less clunky. But at its core, there's an issue, I think, with the way that the system's been set up, that it isn't allowing a kind of, digital verification system that can say that, oh, okay, so you've shown me some proof that you have the vaccine. Let me use something that checks with the government. if I scan it or if I can type in the code that's there to double check that. Yeah. Kind of functionality isn't available.
So tell me about these apps, though. You're talking about going through, for instance, the Service Victoria app. How useful is that in the technical process? Does it actually help make it harder to fake such data?
I don't think so at the moment. I mean, look, so there are some kind of basic security things in these apps that make it a little bit harder to fake. So, for instance, like with the Medicare one, it has like a digital hologram. So it's got a kind of animation. So it means you can't just easily, for instance, screenshot and then just change the text out. But there are, a variety of other ways that you can do that. Kind of exploits with the app, which are, that all sounds pretty pretty complicated. But for people who are, well versed in this stuff, very, very basic kind of workarounds that mean that people have been able to create fake versions of it. And then, of course, there's the paper ones, which are even easier altogether.
Yeah. So what you're talking about, though, is potentially integrating the Medicare data and the Service Victoria check-in app. I mean, how feasible is that to do properly and, with the highest amount of security in any case?
Yeah, so Minister Stuart Robert said, I think early this month, said that he'd been working with the states already for a little bit. And so, we've heard that they're trying to implement that into the systems. So that will be good. But again, it's almost like there's a fundamental flaw with the way that the system has been set up by the federal government. That means that, there's only so much really that the state governments can do because they're kind of building off the foundations of what the federal government has done.
Yeah.
And so
that it's happened this late, as you say, is just extraordinary that they wouldn't have been planning that. And as you point out, their vaccination passports in New South Wales don't even look as if they'll be fully on track before the restrictions ease. So do you think it's acceptable to do it, to actually open up by then if they aren't ready?
Look, I mean, the opening up decision is obviously like a complicated decision. I will say that it does boggle the mind that we didn't, I guess, have something already sorted out. Because, I mean, this kind of, this isn't a super complicated idea. We knew even before we'd have vaccines, at some point we would have the vaccines and we'd want ways to figure out whether people had them or not. Now, there's always been debates around whether we should be, giving certain freedoms to people who've been vaccinated or not. But it does, to me, it's very confusing that we didn't try and do something earlier. That meant that if we got to this point, if we decided that we wanted to give people freedoms who've been vaccinated like we do, that we would have the functionality. The fact that they're still kind of working it out now, it really does seem like, everything's kind of happening on the fly. So
it sounds like for you, Cam Wilson, that it's almost inevitable that is going to be, there's going to be some forgeries out there as we open up.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, let's not, that's obviously, you don't want that happening. But, the vast majority of people getting vaccinated, there are some basic kind of already security things that will mean it's not super, super easy. I don't think the average person, if they just kind of were thinking about it, they could do it quite easily. It requires a little bit of technical know-how. That doesn't mean that it can't spread throughout communities, particularly communities who are trying to evade these kinds of vaccination certificates. But yeah, it's a little bit concerning.
Yep. And look, how sophisticated are those attempts? There's been the odd report of vaccine certificates being sold on the dark web. What can you tell us about that and what exactly are they selling?
Yeah, so at the moment we've seen reports of people selling them on the dark web, and it's kind of hard to know because, still at the moment there's actually nothing that requires a vaccine certificate. So what are they selling? They're selling something that could be on your phone? Yes, so they're selling something, for instance, that you could put in your phone, wallet, so the Apple Wallet or your Google Wallet or whatever. Or also they're selling, I think PDFs as well, which is the kind of printout of the digital version that have been kind of that you can make as put your own details in. So essentially, the upshot of what you seem to be saying this afternoon is that they're already out there, that we're way behind when it comes to actually getting some sort of foolproof system, and the restrictions are going to happen anyway. So it's almost as if it will be a bit useless. One thinks of the COVID app, in the first place, the one that we were, meant to be using all the time that we never did. Yeah, there's no doubt that this is far from a foolproof system. But I guess, look, maybe to, give a bit of credit to the system, it's all about just making it, more and more, making it easier to just, rather than trying to evade the system, to just go and get your shot and get your vaccine certificate. So by having some basic stuff, that will probably encourage some people. If it was more foolproof, it would mean there would be less reason to try and get around it and more reason to get the vaccination. That's why we're pushing for this to have more security.
Cam Wilson, we've just got a text in here saying, how about a Medicare card with a chip? I think we're starting to sort of reinvent the wheel there. I guess, those sort of solutions might just sort of take more time than it's worth. It will be fully open by the time that sort of stuff could roll out.
Yeah, the good thing about the phone system is that the kind of the way that it works, it can be pretty secure if the government had done its kind of back end stuff. And for those people who don't have phones, and there's people out there, plenty of people who don't have smartphones, people who choose not to have them, there is this kind of paper model as well. So I think the idea of a chip probably would be it's almost a bit of a solution in search of a problem. I think it's just easier to hopefully improve these apps so we can have a bit more security around them.
I'm speaking with Cam Wilson, Crikey tech reporter, and we're getting a lot of response here to this, Cam. And one of the questions is, what are the overseas passports like? Are they any better? And my question would be, is it too late for that?
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly with the overseas ones. I haven't done a lot of looking into it. I do know that a lot of countries around the world, they are still using paper certificates as well. So I don't think Australia is necessarily a super long way behind, and many other places are using basic systems. It is obviously an emerging problem. The thing is, maybe I'm being a bit unfair, but I compare it to going to things like a concert or a sporting match where you've got a kind of a barcode or something, where what a barcode allows you to do is be like, well, not only do I have this piece of paper, this ticket that says that I should be in there, but it allows them to check against their internal system saying that, yeah, this is a legitimate ticket. No one's already sat in the seat. The fact that we don't have something similar for vaccine passports, really, I'm kind of a bit gobsmacked by it. I'm sure it's more complex than I'm letting on. But like I said before, what are we, 18, 20 months into this pandemic? We knew that something like this could happen. The fact that we don't have, that we haven't improved the immunisation register and all the other infrastructure around it, to me, it does feel like a bit of a failure.
Andrew has drawn a very unkind comparison. Remember how we reinvented the wheel when Victoria introduced the Mikey card instead of just buying the Oyster system already in use elsewhere, and the vaccination passport sounds like a rerun. Thanks, Andrew, for that. And Paul from Narre Warren North says, why are there not serious penalties for falsifying the certificate, for instance, jail time? Cam Wilson, do you think that that's a possibility of even working if, for instance, these forgeries are so accessible? Is that the answer?
Look, all these things around how you encourage people to get vaccinated is kind of complicated, and there's aspects of.
I put you on the spot there, Cam.
I know. I'm not a legal expert in that. I do think that one important part of this system is you have to think about who the people are who would be actually enforcing something like this. Even the system as it is now, where it's, in our current iteration, very often, it's not like police officers. It's not, it's very often it's just like, bar staff. It's someone letting you into a venue. These are people who really don't want to have to deal with people who are doing, who have fake certificates, who are just trying to get around the system.
We were talking earlier in the program about community sports. These are volunteers who might be at the door.
Exactly. You want to make this as easy as possible for them, which is why, having the system where it could easily check, seems like something that should kind of be a no-brainer. Ultimately, though, you do, when you're designing these things, you want to keep in consideration not just like how can we make sure that it's 100% foolproof, but also how is it actually going to be used, and how can we make sure that the people using it are going to have a good experience as well and not cause unnecessary strife.
Cam Wilson, thank you for taking us through that. We have a lot of messages and calls coming through about this. It sounds like there are more questions than answers, but thanks for telling us what's happening.
Thank you.
That's Cam Wilson, Crikey tech reporter, talking to us there. I'll get to those texts and calls in a moment. But first, let's have a quick look at what's happening on the roads with Dan.